What happens when one of the world's most talked about public figures walks onto a live daytime talk show and immediately faces difficult questions that nobody in the audience expects to hear? Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The audience erupts in applause as Meghan Markle steps onto the set of The View, her white tailored suit catching the studio lights as she waves warmly at the crowd. She greets each panelist individually, exchanging brief hugs with Whoopi, Joy, and Sarah before taking her seat. The energy in the room is electric, with audience members leaning forward in their seats, phones raised, capturing every moment. Whoopi Goldberg welcomes viewers back from the break, her voice booming across the studio. We're back with Meghan Markle. Thanks for joining us today. Meghan smiles, her posture poised but relaxed. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Joy Behar chuckles, glancing around the audience. That applause lasted longer than we usually get. I think people are excited. The audience laughs, and Meghan joins in, her laugh light and genuine. Sarah Haynes jumps in with a softer question to ease everyone into the conversation. Can you tell us a little about how you're balancing public life with family these days? That's something so many people struggle with. Meghan nods thoughtfully, her hands resting comfortably in her lap. Privacy has become one of the most valuable things in our lives. I've learned that people often believe they know everything about you, but they usually only know a small piece. The challenge is protecting that small piece that belongs just to you and your family. Sunny Hostin listens intently, nodding along before leaning forward with a slight shift in her demeanor. I want to ask something that many viewers have written to us about. The audience quiets almost immediately, sensing a change in tone. Sunny continues, her voice measured but direct. You've spoken about media pressure many times, and many people sympathize with that. But there are also viewers who wonder whether you've sometimes benefited from that same attention. How do you respond to people who say you choose privacy only when it's convenient? A few members of the audience murmur among themselves, and Meghan's smile fades just slightly. She pauses before answering, her eyes meeting Sunny's directly. I think that's a fair question, she says calmly, her voice steady. There's a difference between sharing parts of your life on your own terms and having every part of your life examined without your consent. That's the distinction I try to make. Sunny doesn't back down, leaning in further. But critics would argue that interviews, documentaries, and public appearances invite that attention. So where is the line? Meghan nods slowly, acknowledging the point. They do. But choosing to tell your own story isn't the same as losing control over every headline written about you. I think people forget that there's a human being behind the public figure. Joy raises an eyebrow, jumping in with her signature dry humor. Some people would say that's just part of being famous. Meghan smiles politely, but there's a flicker of something sharper behind her eyes. I understand why they would say that. Whoopi steps in, her voice firm and authoritative. I think what Meghan is saying is that there's a line between public interest and personal boundaries. That's not unreasonable. Sunny responds, her tone respectful but persistent. I agree that boundaries matter. I'm asking whether the public gets mixed messages when you speak out so much about privacy while still being very visible. The audience listens closely, some nodding in agreement, others watching intently to see how Meghan will respond. Meghan folds her hands, taking a breath. I don't expect everyone to agree with every decision I've made. That's impossible. What I hope people understand is that decisions are often made with information the public never sees. You can't judge someone's choices without knowing the full context. Sunny nods but doesn't seem fully convinced. So when people question your choices, do you think they're being unfair? I think some are, Meghan replies carefully. Others are simply asking honest questions. And I respect honest questions. The audience applauds the measured response, a wave of support washing through the studio. Alyssa Farah Griffin joins in, her tone more diplomatic. Public figures have to accept criticism. Do you think there's anything you would have handled differently over the past few years? Meghan smiles thoughtfully, the tension easing slightly. Absolutely. Everyone looks back and sees moments they'd approached differently. That's just being human. Joy laughs, breaking the heaviness. That's probably the most relatable answer we've heard all morning. The audience laughs with her, and Sunny allows herself a small smile. But she's not done yet. I appreciate that answer. But I still think some viewers feel there's a contradiction between asking for privacy while remaining very visible. Meghan nods slowly, her expression calm but firm. I've heard that criticism many times. And, Sunny presses. And I think visibility doesn't cancel humanity. Just because people see you doesn't mean they own you. The audience applauds again, louder this time. Sunny pauses for a moment before replying, something unreadable crossing her face. That's an interesting way to put it. Whoopi glances toward the audience, her voice warm. I think this conversation is exactly why people wanted Meghan here. This is real. The applause grows even louder, and Meghan's smile returns, though there's a new edge to the atmosphere. The panel seems to sense that this is only the beginning, and the questions are about to become even more direct. Whoopi smiles toward the camera, her tone shifting into host mode. We're just getting started. Stay with us. The audience applauds as the show heads toward its next segment, but the tension lingers. Everyone on stage knows the conversation is about to take a turn nobody expected. The show returns from the break with a quick shot of the audience buzzing before the cameras cut back to the panel. Whoopi welcomes everyone back, her tone upbeat, but with an edge of anticipation. We're back with Meghan Markle, and the conversation is just getting interesting. Meghan smiles, but her posture has shifted slightly, shoulders a fraction tighter, hands clasped more firmly. Sunny Hostin doesn't waste a second. She leans forward, her voice carrying a new intensity. Meghan, I want to go back to something you said earlier about visibility, not canceling humanity. That's a beautiful sentiment. But let's talk about the Oprah interview. The audience goes quiet. Meghan's smile falters for just a moment before she regains composure. What about it? Sunny presses on. In that interview, you made some very serious claims about the royal family. About conversations regarding your son's skin color. About feeling silenced. About not getting support when you needed it. Those are heavy allegations. And yet, you've also said you want privacy. So my question is, how do you reconcile making those incredibly public statements with your desire for a private life? Joy shifts in her seat, sensing the temperature rising. Sarah glances between them, her expression nervous. Alyssa watches intently. Meghan takes a breath, her voice measured but carrying an undercurrent of frustration. Sunny, I think there's a misconception that speaking your truth once means you've opened the door for everyone to keep picking at the wound forever. The Oprah interview was a moment where I felt I had to correct the narrative because so many false stories had been told about me and my family. That doesn't mean I want to relive that moment every single day for the rest of my life. Sunny doesn't blink. But you chose to do that interview. You chose to sit in front of millions and share those details. And now, when people ask follow-up questions, you say you want privacy. Don't you see how that looks? A murmur ripples through the audience. Some people nod in agreement, others shake their heads. Meghan's voice tightens. I see how it looks to people who've never been in my position. But let me ask you something, Sunny. Have you ever had every word you've ever said dissected, twisted, and used against you? Have you ever had your mental health struggles dismissed because you're supposed to be grateful for the platform you have? Sunny's jaw tightens. I'm not dismissing your mental health. I'm asking about consistency. Consistency. Meghan lets out a short, disbelieving laugh. The expectation that I have to be consistent for everyone else while no one holds the media accountable for the lies they've printed about me. That's the real inconsistency. Whoopi raises a hand, trying to mediate. Let's take a breath. Sunny's asking a fair question, and Meghan's giving a fair answer. We can have a discussion without it becoming. Without it becoming what, Whoopi? Sunny interrupts, her voice rising slightly. Without it becoming honest? Because I think the audience deserves honesty. Meghan, you're a public figure. You've chosen to remain a public figure. You're here today on this show speaking to millions. So when you say you want privacy, it sounds like you want privacy from the parts of fame that are inconvenient, but you're happy to use the parts that benefit you. The audience gasps softly. Meghan's eyes flash. That's not fair, and I think you know that. Is it not? Sunny counters. Because I've had people in my own community tell me they feel confused by your messaging. They admire you, they support you, but they wonder, what exactly do you want? Do you want to be heard, or do you want to be left alone? Because those are two very different things. Meghan leans forward, her voice dropping lower but gaining intensity. I want to be heard when I choose to speak. And I want to be left alone when I choose to live my life. Why is that so hard to understand? Why does a woman have to choose one or the other? The audience erupts in a mix of applause and scattered boos. Whoopi holds up her hands. All right, everyone calm down. We're having a conversation here. Joy jumps in, trying to lighten the mood. I think what we're seeing is that this is a really complicated issue. And neither side is completely wrong. But Sunny isn't backing down. She looks at Meghan, her expression stern. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that when you put yourself in the public eye, people are going to ask these questions. And you can't be upset when they do. Meghan stares back, her composure cracking just slightly. I'm not upset. I'm exhausted. There's a difference. The studio falls into a heavy silence. The tension is palpable, and the audience holds its breath, waiting to see what comes next. The heavy silence hangs over the studio for what feels like an eternity. Whoopi breaks it with a deep breath, glancing between Sunny and Meghan. Okay, I think we need to take a moment here. This is getting intense. But Sunny shakes her head, her voice calmer but no less determined. No, Whoopi. I think we need to finish this. Meghan, I'm not your enemy. I'm asking the questions that millions of people are thinking. And I think you know that. Meghan's hands are clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles white. She takes a slow breath before responding. I know you're not my enemy, Sunny. But I also know that when a woman of color speaks up about what she's experienced, there's always a pushback. Always. People want you to be grateful. They want you to be quiet. They want you to take what you're given and smile. And the moment you don't, you're labeled as difficult, ungrateful, or inconsistent. The audience stirs, some nodding in agreement, others watching with wide eyes. Sarah Haynes leans in, her voice softer. Meghan, I think what Sunny is trying to say is that there's a perception issue. And perceptions matter when you're a public figure. How do you deal with that? Meghan turns to Sarah, her expression softening slightly. I deal with it by reminding myself that perception isn't reality. The reality is that I've faced racism, I've faced death threats. I've faced a media machine that tried to destroy me because I didn't fit into the box they wanted me to fit into. And I've survived it. Not because I'm tough or because I have a thick skin, but because I refuse to let them break me. Joy interjects, her tone unusually serious. And I think that's what people admire about you, Meghan. They see someone who's been through hell and came out the other side. But I also think Sunny has a point. When you put yourself out there, people are going to have opinions. I don't mind opinions, Meghan replies, her voice rising slightly. What I mind is the double standard. When I speak, I'm criticized. When I stay silent, I'm criticized. There's no winning. So I've stopped trying to win. I just try to be honest. Sunny leans back, crossing her arms. Honest. Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think you've ever been dishonest in how you've presented your story? Meghan's eyes narrow. Excuse me? I'm not accusing you of lying, Sunny clarifies quickly. I'm asking if you've ever left out parts of the story that might make you look less sympathetic. The audience gasps. Meghan's jaw tightens visibly. I've shared my truth, Sunny. That's all anyone can do. But your truth changes depending on the platform, doesn't it? Sunny presses, leaning forward again. In the Oprah interview, you said you felt silenced. But in your Netflix documentary, you said you felt empowered. Which is it? Meghan's voice cracks slightly. It's both. Human beings are complicated. We can feel multiple things at once. I was silenced in the institution, and I felt empowered when I finally left it. Those two things can exist together. Alyssa jumps in, trying to de-escalate. I think that's a really fair point. Emotions aren't black and white. Sunny nods, but her expression remains skeptical. I agree. Emotions aren't black and white. But public statements are. When you say one thing in one interview and something else in another, people notice. And when people notice, they draw conclusions. Meghan stares at Sunny, her composure finally cracking. And what conclusion have you drawn about me, Sunny? Because I'd really like to know. The question hangs in the air like a grenade. Sunny pauses, her lips pressing together as she considers her response. I think you're a woman who's been through a lot. I think you've handled things better than most people could. But I also think you've used your platform in ways that sometimes feel contradictory. And I think that confusion is part of why people struggle to fully support you. Meghan laughs, but there's no humor in it. Wow, that's something. What is? Sunny asks, her voice challenging. Your honesty. Meghan shakes her head slowly. You want me to be honest, but when I am, I'm criticized. You want me to be consistent, but you don't acknowledge that the circumstances around me have never been consistent. You say I've used my platform, but you don't acknowledge that I've also used it to speak out about causes that matter: mental health, racial justice, gender equality. But those things don't matter, do they? Because they don't fit the narrative. The audience erupts into loud applause and a few scattered boos. Whoopi stands up, her voice booming. All right, that's enough. We are live, people. Let's all take a breath. Sunny puts her hands up in surrender, but her jaw is set. I'm not attacking you, Meghan. Then what are you doing? Meghan shoots back, her voice trembling with emotion. Because it sure feels like an attack. The studio falls silent again. Everyone on stage looks uncomfortable, the tension nearly unbearable. Whoopi glances at the clock, then at her co-hosts. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. As the cameras cut to commercial, the audience buzzes with whispers. Meghan looks down at her hands, visibly shaken. Sunny stares straight ahead, refusing to make eye contact. Joy shakes her head quietly, and Sarah lets out a long, slow breath. Behind the scenes, producers scramble, knowing they have a viral moment on their hands. But what happens next is anyone's guess. The show returns from commercial break with a noticeably different energy. The audience is restless, whispering among themselves, still processing what just happened. Whoopi takes her seat with a heavy sigh, clearly trying to reset the tone. All right, we're back. Let's try to bring this conversation to a more constructive place. Meghan has composed herself, though her eyes are still slightly red. She takes a sip of water, her hand trembling just a little. Sunny sits with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The other hosts exchange nervous glances. Joy speaks first, her voice softer than usual. I think we all need to acknowledge that this has been a really emotional conversation. And I think that's okay. These are important issues. Sarah nods quickly. Absolutely. And I think what we're seeing is two women who both have strong opinions and aren't afraid to express them. That's not a bad thing. Alyssa chimes in carefully. I think there's room for nuance here. Meghan, you've been through something most of us can't imagine. And Sunny, you're asking questions that a lot of people genuinely want answers to. Neither of you is wrong. Meghan lets out a slow breath, her shoulders relaxing slightly. I appreciate that. And I want to say something to Sunny directly. Sunny uncrosses her arms, leaning forward. I'm listening. Meghan looks her in the eyes, her voice steady but vulnerable. I know you're not trying to hurt me. I know you're doing your job. And I respect that. But I need you to understand that when I talk about my experiences, I'm not just talking about tabloid headlines or paparazzi photos. I'm talking about real pain, real fear, real moments where I didn't know if I was going to make it through. The audience goes completely silent. Sunny's expression softens, just slightly. I do understand that, Meghan. I really do. Then why does it feel like you're trying to tear me down? Meghan asks, her voice cracking. Why does it feel like nothing I say is ever enough? Sunny pauses, her own voice dropping. Because I'm not trying to tear you down. I'm trying to get you to see how your message lands with people who aren't in your world. People who don't have your platform or your resources. People who look at you and see someone who has everything, and they wonder why it still isn't enough. Meghan wipes a tear from her eye. It's not about having everything, Sunny. It's about being seen. Really seen. Not as a princess or a duchess or a celebrity, but as a person. The audience lets out a collective sigh, many reaching for tissues. Sunny nods slowly, her own eyes glistening. I can see that. And I'm sorry if I made you feel unseen. Meghan smiles weakly. I appreciate that. Whoopi claps her hands together, clearly relieved. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Real conversation. Real connection. The audience erupts in applause, standing for a moment before settling back down. Joy shakes her head in wonder. You know, this is why I love this show. We fight, we cry, we make up, all in one episode. Sarah laughs. It's like therapy, but with cameras. Meghan laughs too, the tension finally breaking. I think I need a nap after this. The panel shares a collective laugh, the storm passing as quickly as it arrived. But the conversation leaves its mark. In the green room after the show, sources say Meghan and Sunny had a private conversation that lasted nearly 20 minutes. They reportedly hugged before Meghan left the building. Social media explodes within hours. Clips of the heated exchange trend worldwide, with viewers taking sides. Some praise Sunny for holding Meghan accountable, while others criticize her for being too harsh. Meghan's supporters rally behind her, flooding Twitter with messages of support using the hashtag #WeSeeYouMeghan. Sunny later tweets a statement. Had a real conversation today. No hard feelings. Just women being honest with each other. That's what we need more of. Meghan posts a photo on Instagram of herself backstage, captioned simply, "Grateful for the real ones." Always. Meanwhile, the Star Talks continues to cover the fallout, with viewers flooding the comments section. One user writes, Sunny was too aggressive. Meghan handled that with so much grace. Another responds, Sunny asks fair questions. Meghan just doesn't want to answer them. The debate rages on, proving once again that when public figures speak their truth, the world is always listening and always ready to react. If you enjoyed this talk show moment, share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more talk show stories. We'll see you in the next episode.